Deep within a strange, mist-filled swamp, a dark-skinned human woman kneels. Her fingers are entwined with those of her friends who lay bloody and motionless on a small islet that rises from the murky waters. Tears stream down her face, and small sobs cause her to shudder involuntarily as she gazes blearily at the corpses of the goblin and the dwarf woman that she refuses to let go of. Behind her, a small goblin has settled, his hand gently placed on the woman's back as though he can hold her together, keep her from breaking apart with each of those wretched sobs. Several minutes have gone by since the creature that slew the women fled, or perhaps it's been hours. Time does not seem to pass here in the gray murk that surrounds them. Reev, the goblin, only knows that Ngaio's tears are still flowing, and he has chosen to remain quietly, but here to support the human when she's ready. The dwarf's armor, dented and bloody, shudders. Ngaio starts, but does not let go of her friend's hand. From the bloody stump where the dwarf's head had once poked through the heavy armor, a low moan emerges, causing Reev's skin to crawl. The goblin stands, looking wildly around for the weapons he dropped nearby. But the body begins to twitch, slowly at first, then more violently. "What the bloody hell? Why can't I see a damn thing?" Ngaio gasps in disbelief, letting go of both hands she's been clenching to so tightly. "I'm stuck, goddammit! Help me out of here!" The cry goes up. Reev can only stare in disbelief as Ngaio reaches forward to prop up Sorsha, the dwarven woman they both thought was dead. With a deeply disturbing squelch, the dwarf's blood-soaked head emerges from her misshapen armor. "Oh, lass, thank you," she says through a broad grin, her accent strange and thick to Reev's ears. The dwarf's eyes refocus beyond her human friend, taking note of Reev. "That's not our goblin," she says. "Where is Pei?" Her words end as abruptly as her face falls, the smile disappearing. She stares at the crumpled, unmoving form of Pain, for whom it does not appear there are any miracles left for today. Welcome, everyone. So, last time, the dice did not treat our friends very well. However, what I did realize after the game, and I wanted to fix and then clarify, I wasn't treating armor correctly here in the game of Vagabond by Land of the Blind. So, we're doing a little retconning through some story. The armor reduces damage. It doesn't increase how difficult it is to hit somebody. So technically, Sorsha did not take enough damage to die. However, there was no stopping what happened in Pain. So with that being said, Reev, our main character here, finds himself on this lone islet in the strange swamp that he's been transported to. And before him, a human woman named Ngaio and a strange, short, stout, thick woman who's apparently a dwarf, which he's never heard of before, named Sorsha, embrace. He stands awkwardly to the side. Real quick, thanks everybody for joining. Hi Raven, hi Stacy, hello Dave and Ty, thanks so much. In fact, let's do a shout out for Guild Superior, who has their series finale of House of Eidolon's Siren's Demise tonight. After this stream is over, we'll be raiding over there, so you can check it out. It's going to be a grand old time. Looking forward to that. I hope you're all ready over there, Dave and Ty. So with that being said, our group takes a few moments to adjust to the new situation. Ngaio is openly weeping as Reeves stands off to the side, feeling very nervous. He's found his weapons. He's just kind of watching them embrace, and the dwarf kneels next to the goblin's body, Pain, who was unable to be saved She places Payne's hands over her chest and begins to speak in a language Reev has no ability to comprehend. It seems reverent, maybe a little mournful, and it just makes him that much more self-conscious. And so he begins to patrol around them while they apparently prepare Payne's body for maybe they're speaking that same language to each other, and he doesn't really know what's going on. So it seems like they're maybe preparing her for internment or something. Oh no, they're gathering some wood. They're placing it over. Okay, they're placing it over her body, and so he's going to kind of help them do so. His own people don't use cremation, but he's seen other people's that do, and so he's not unfamiliar with the practice. And when it comes down to it and it is time to strike the flame, he sees them searching for some way to do so, and he reaches into his little pouch and pulls out his tinderbox and hands it to Ngaio silently. She doesn't say anything, but she does place a hand on his shoulder and smiles at him. Tears still flowing, and she kneels down, strikes the flint. It takes a while because it's very wet here. But they manage to get a small flame going, which then catches, spreads, and within maybe half an hour, again, it's hard to tell, the goblin's body is gone. Just a pile of charred remains, some ash, coals. Sniffling, the dwarf kind of kicks a coal, trying to like kind of smother the fire a little bit. I suppose we should get going before those massive beasties come back. Ngaio nods, taking one last look at the place where her friend's body was, and then leads her friend over to the skiff that remains kind of blocked off. Reev didn't have a rope to tie it off with, but he had blocked it so it wouldn't float away. He climbs silently aboard, the dwarf staring at him. He smiles awkwardly, and he holds out his hand. He's seen other people do this. He's not really a toucher. The whole hand on Niall's back was actually kind of a big deal for him, but he's seen other people do this, especially in awkward situations. He holds his hand out to shake the dwarf's hand. She just kind of stares down at him. "Where did you find this one?" she says. Ngaio sits with a sigh. "I don't know. I don't even know where we are. We found him in the swamp. He's been helpful, which is good. I suppose we could do with another goblin." She spits on her hand and holds it out to Reev. Reev winces, takes a long moment, and then grips the slimy hand, shakes it. As soon as Sorsha looks away, he's rubbing the goop off on his breeches. So where would you all like to go? Should we continue on? He looks at Ngaio. Yes, I think that'd be best. Moving away from here seems best. There were at least 2 of those creatures still. Okay. He pushes off with the pole, and they begin their journey through the swamp again. Time passes and the gray goes from just a thick, almost soupy opaqueness around them to kind of thinning out some. But as it does so, the sky grows darker and darker. Soon, a starless sky spreads blackly above them. Maybe every so often they catch the slightest glimmer of a star, but it's kind of hard to tell. Seems like the fog is still here, but lingering off at the edges, grasping to tree roots, laying low over the water. And as the sunlight, it's hard to tell, as the daylight fades away, they are once again in darkness. They do not have torches, and Reev kind of pushes them into a steady motion of going forward without having to like constantly. He pushes off really hard so that it'll kind of glide forward for a bit into an open area, and he hustles over to his bag, opens it up, looks in, sighs, pulls out the last of his rations, places one in Ngaio's hand, taking her hand, opening it, placing it in there. She looks down at it, squints, nods, and begins to slowly eat the dry beef and kind of crusty, almost moldy bread at this point. The humidity of the swamp is not doing it any favors. When he hands some to Sorsha, they don't exchange words, and she just kind of looks down at it, wrinkles her nose, sniffs it, but then shrugs and begins to eat it as well. He takes his smaller portion, goes back to the pole. He sits down with it, wrenches off a piece of dried meat, and begins to once again push. After Sorsha finishes up, she actually gets up and comes back and sits with him. I can take this from here. Are you sure? You're not looking all that great. It's fine. I'll be fine. You go and get some rest. You've been pushing for hours now. I don't know how you know that. There's no sun, there's no stars, there's no moon. I have lost time. I don't even know how many days I've been here. She just gestures. She doesn't even say anything anymore, just expecting him to listen. So he goes up and sits next to Ngaio, who's just kind of staring off, her eyes wide in the way that humans can't see in the dark, and so she's trying to see, but kind of unfocused, like she's also lost in thought. So he just sits down next to her for a while. And they pass the night fairly uneventfully, I think. Quietly, and Reev is just silent to allow his new companions, maybe not friends yet. I feel like he's feeling a little friendly about Ngaio, but we don't really know Ngaio's inner thinking, so he's not sure how she feels about him. He really doesn't know what to think about this dwarf woman, whatever a dwarf is. Apparently it's a short, stocky human. Why there's a word for it, he doesn't know, but okay. And he really doesn't feel like she has warmed up to him whatsoever, although him, or her taking over for him to push the skiff, maybe something. As the night progresses, they will take turns, but nothing jumps out at them, nothing attacks. And sooner rather than later, it seems, that grayness to the day begins to light up the sky. The sky is colorless. It doesn't seem to have any blue or oranges of a sunrise or anything that would even constitute cloud cover so much, unless it's just flat, murky gray. You can see how this is going to be difficult, Sorsha says. They pass this time slowly getting comfortable with each other. Sorsha begins to ask Reev where he's from. I'm from around, but I just forgot where I came from. But I get around. He starts naming some places that he's visited. She is lost. Ngaio nods. Yeah, we've been having that issue. I don't know what land he's from. It must be further to the east than maybe Karatur. I don't know. And Reev feels the same. He's never heard of this Baldur's Gate that they say they hail from. He has no idea what a Karatur is. Or this land of Faerun that they've mentioned. But seems they're all in the same place now, and so he's pretty okay with just letting that go for now. If it becomes an issue later on that he ends up in one of these places and has to navigate his way home, he's had to do worse as a scout for the various employers that have paid him to do what he does. The day passes uneventfully, so much so that there's no sign of creature to make for lunch to hunt down. Reev has his bow out and is sitting on the front of the skiff, kind of keeping an eye out as they move through these tangles of roots, gliding over water, watching the murky, sometimes moss and seaweedy, like water grasses that are growing up from the dark waters. He's watching for any signs of fish. Doesn't see anything. Ngaio has her bow out and is doing the same. She's quite a bit taller and can see maybe some other areas. She's watching up in the trees. Doesn't see any birds. Everything is oddly quiet. Every so often they think maybe they hear something off in the distance, and Sorsha will push off with the pole to kind of maybe redirect them, since they have no set goal of where they're going. One way is as good as another, as long as it's not back. But nothing ever seems to reveal itself, and as the light begins to fade on that day, their stomachs are grumbling. They're starting to feel a little parched. They're still water. Reev has rationed it back so that they can take small sips every so often, but they don't feel comfortable drinking whatever is in this water, and any other kind of moisture doesn't seem to be. There's no like holes that have filled with rainwater or anything like that. In fact, the weather hasn't changed at all. It's been this strange, thick humidity and shifting from gray daylight into the blackest of nighttime, especially for poor Ngaio and her human eyes who cannot see in the dark. The next day passes very similarly. And as the following day begins to draw to a close. Ngaio's laying kind of curled up, shaking. Reev is he's tied his dagger onto the end of his bow, unstrung the bow, and he's like just stabbing at things in the water, trying to get something. Earlier they tried to eat some of the moss or some of the grasses, just something for sustenance. Ngaio tried a mushroom, and now she's sweating, shaking. What little she ate came up shortly thereafter, and Sorsha stares at her in worry as they continue to push on. Sorsha, also weakened from hunger, is trying her best to push as fast as she can, trying to find something, anything that they can eat. Reev curses in Goblin, and there's a low chuckle from Sorsha as she says, "I don't know what you just said, but I get the gist. And I agree with it." Reev looks back at her, smiles thinly, and goes back to looking in the water, stabbing at things that look like maybe they're fish, glints here and there, but nothing. I think it's to Ngaio's soft, weak groans hours after the light has faded that Reev first notices there's a glimmer up ahead. He looks back at Sorsha to see if she noticed, and her eyes are closed. She's leaning on the pole. It's just kind of dangling in the water at this point. He goes back and takes it from her. You sit down. I think there's something up there. Excuse me. Sorsha kind of wobbles for a moment and then walks to the front of the skiff, staring ahead. No, you're right. There's definitely something up there. Reev begins to, as fast as he can, push the skiff forward. The smell of something is cooking. Something quite delightful, or it could be horrible, but it smells delightful. As he pushes forward, he sees a campfire and several people, some whose forms are small and some who are more in line with Ngaio's size. A little bit of drool escapes his lips, and then he stops himself and he runs to the front and he stops the boat. He pushes the pole into the water, catching it and stopping their forward motion. I don't know if this is safe. Sorsha looks down at Ngaio and shrugs. She's like, well, it's better than staying here. Right now, if we just continue this on, we're just gonna starve to death. Reev looks at Ngaio. He can't be as nonchalant as Sorsha, but he can't help but agree with her. And so he goes back and begins pushing off. As they get closer, he sees that the camp has calmed, the movement is stopped, but he can see an aged man, frail, long white hair, kind of braided in various lines and then braided together into a thick clump. He's dressed in flowing, brightly colored garments. He stirs a large pot as he stares directly at Reev, or at least directly at the group on their skiff. He raises a hand and gestures as though to beckon them forward. Sorsha looks back, shrugs at Reev. Reev shrugs back at her and continues pushing. As they get closer, they can see that there's a also elderly woman, human like the man. She is holding out some plates for the man, who spoons what looks like a really thick stew. It's got, looks like vegetables and chunks of meat, and just like steam rises up off of it. There are 3 kids who are probably human. It's difficult for Reev to really be sure, but they have that quality of their structure that makes them look more like human and not like halflings or something else. And another man, much younger than the other one, his dark hair done up similarly to the older man's. All of them are brightly dressed, and there is a covered wagon nearby with 2 horses that are not hitched to it, but are kind of corralled in a little makeshift area off to the side. The skiff bumps up against the mossy islet that they all sit on. I'm just going to do a quick roll for Reev here. We're going to do some detect. He needs a 6 or above. Come on, Reev, you can do this. Got a 6. Starting off low, but it still made it. Perfect. All right, so as he's looking around, he's bumped the skiff kind of into a place that the current is going to take it, and he just leaves it there. He's just like, screw this, and gets off the skiff, jumping on. He does have his bow in hand, but he doesn't have an arrow knocked or even pulled from his quiver. His dagger does rest on his side, but he's just watching carefully. In a language that he doesn't understand, the man at the fire says something and beckons. He looks at the man confusedly and then back at the dwarf. It doesn't sound like the language the dwarf was speaking either, but maybe she understands. Sorsha is actually in the process of trying to get Ngaio up. She's trying to sit her up. Ngaio, sweating, shaking, her eyes open slightly. They're very glassy and seem far away. The elderly woman says something, and Reev doesn't understand it, but it does sound dismayed. Then she starts speaking to the younger man, says something, and the younger man sighs and goes over to the skiff. He looks down at the skiff and he just shakes his head like, what are you doing? He goes back, he grabs some rope, he ties off the rope to a tree, and then goes over and like ties it off to the skiff, and then steps onto the skiff, and Sorsha clenches her shield in her hand, holding Ngaio in the other arm, and just glares up at the man for a moment. The man puts his hands out, says something. She doesn't seem to understand what it is. Reev looks back at the campfire and the elderly folk and the kids that are there. They're just watching. But the woman seems to understand as she gets up. And she begins to chant. He can't understand the words, but she begins to say something, and it seems in this cadence that he has always likened or held in reference to casting magic, spell casting. And in a moment, the words that the man is saying become clear. And he's saying, "I'm not going to hurt her. Please just let me help you." Sorcer's eyes go wide, and she looks down at Ngaio and then back at the man and nods. He picks her up quite handily, and carries her over the fire. When he does so, Reev can see, even though the older folk are in good shape, they're not necessarily incapable, but this fellow is definitely like much younger, very muscular, and seems to be able to handle himself. However, Reev does notice he doesn't carry a weapon. And so Reev goes and sits nearby where they set Ngaio, lays his bow on the ground, takes a big inhalation.
That smells wonderful. What are you having?
The woman holds forth a plate and says, "Oh, it's a rabbit stew. You're more than welcome to have some. There's some carrots and celery," and she starts to begin to list off spices.
Okay, I didn't really need to know all that.
And he takes some, and the like wooden spoon that they give him with it, and begins shoveling stew in his face. There's a visible shudder of pleasure, I think, and soon he can see that Sorsha is also shoveling stew into her face, but after the first several bites, she kind of chews for a moment, takes a deep breath, and then picks up the other plate that they've given her and begins to slowly try to feed Ngaio. The woman looks at Ngaio's form. "Oh, she ate some of the fungus, didn't she? Some of the mushrooms."
Yeah, she did.
That's not good. I'll be back. She gets up and she heads off to the wagon. Just going to do a quick roll for Reev here. Again, it's a 6 or better. 10. Better. As she opens the door, Reev does notice that there are some lanterns lit inside, which he thinks is weird, because why are there lanterns lit in the enclosed wagon? Until he sees, laying on a bed, a woman sits up, and then the door closes. When it reopens a few minutes later, he doesn't see the woman. She seemed younger than, maybe around the same age or younger than the man who carried Ngaio. After he finishes eating, or while he's finishing up, he sees the woman walk back out. She has a small bundle of different satchels and like what looks like a grinding pestle and mortar and all that. And she begins to work on something. The elderly man, who's just kind of been watching, every so often he'll like say something to the kids when they get out of line or whatever. They're just giggling. Every so often they're pointing at Reev, who is by far the weirdest looking person here, if you're judging weirdness by being human or a dwarf. That is a little weird to him, because doesn't everyone know what a goblin is? But they're kids, so he doesn't really think anything of it, or too much of it anyway. And as everyone finishes eating up, the older man he sets down his plate, takes a big breath in, lets out this tremendous belch. Apologize, I lost my list of names. It's here. I just gotta get to it. I am Starenji. Skarenji. I can say this word. I hope that you are full and rested. What are you doing in the swamps? Sorsha just kind of looks over at him, but then goes back to feeding Ngaio, glancing at Reev like he's supposed to answer for her. So he'll do his best.
So I was in a swamp that wasn't this one, and I don't think it was connected to this one. I've never seen a swamp quite like this one, but it wouldn't surprise me, because the swamp I was in has been growing and changing, and you look like maybe you don't understand what I'm saying. Is this magic still working?
Skarenji laughs. Oh yes, I'm sorry. Please continue. I'm just not sure what you're talking about.
Okay, so I was traveling, scouting out on a mission, and then this mist came up, and I was here, and I met Ngaio over there, who's the human, and her friend.
He just kind of glances over at them. Ngaio is still, seems like somewhat unconscious, every so often taking small bites. And then it seems like Sorsha is just ignoring, but Reev does notice her head turn slightly, like she's listening intently.
So I found them, and then we were looking for their friend, who's the short woman over there, and we ended up finding her, but these large toads were attacking, and they unfortunately killed her friend. And so we've just been looking for food since then, and maybe a way out of this damn swamp.
The man listens, and nearby, the younger fellow is sitting down. He's helping the kids clean up their plates, but he also is watching intently while this story is going on. The older woman nods. She's begun to squeeze this paste through like she had it in like this kind of bag, and now that it's all mixed up and she's like kind of massaged it to the point that it's like this paste, she's squeezing it out and trying to put it on like Ngaio's gums. She's trying to like rub it in. Yes, it seems like the miss brought you here. That's not unusual.
Okay, well, I mean, it's a little unusual.
I take it you're not from the realms.
No, the realms?
Sorsha does sit down. She's watching all this happen as Ngaio's fed this paste. Do you mean the Forgotten Realms? Yes, we're from there. Faerun specifically. Scattered about, but we've our group hails from Baldur's Gate. Do you know how to get back there? No, I don't know what a Forgotten Realm is, and I don't know what Baldur's Gate is or where that is. The older man laughs, but there doesn't seem to be much humor in it, and he gets up and puts his hand on the older woman's shoulder. I have to apologize for my wife. Rihanna doesn't always remember that those that we encounter here are sometimes drawn from elsewhere, not just from within our realms, but from outside of them. She glares at him. I forgot no such thing.
I'm really lost. I don't know what that means. Can you maybe help explain it?
The younger man sighs, gets up. He puts the clean dishes back in what looks like a large leather satchel. It's always the same. Why do you even talk to these people? Just give them the food that we really can't spare and send them on their way. Now, Carloni, the older man says, don't be rude. You know the rules. They're at our camp. We are here to help them if they need it. They will leave when they are ready. The man just glares at Reev, shakes his head, goes back to putting things away. He gets the pot, pours what little stew is left into what looks like a large wooden bowl, covers it with a thick leather, and pulls like a string taut on it, like a leather tie. Reev does. His stomach grumbles a little as he's staring at it, but the young man doesn't offer it to him. All right, kids, you be off to bed now. You don't need to be out here for this. And the three kids get up. They're giggling, but between laughing and whispering to one another and staring at Reev, they disappear into what looks like a little area that's been cleared out for them to all sleep in. There are some blankets laid out. The young man comes back and is standing in the firelight, but kind of at the edge of it between the strangers that have arrived in his camp and the children that he seems to be watching over. I'm going to do a roll for Reev here. Terrible roll. He didn't glean anything from that that interaction, but he does get the feeling that this Carloni fellow is not a fan. Every so often he does keep an eye out on that wagon to see if he can catch any glimpse of the woman who's resting within, hiding within, hopefully not imprisoned within. She didn't seem to try to flee, but what if she's like drugged or something? It seems like this older woman does know her herbs and stuff. What if they have this woman drugged in there? Something to consider. As he's watching, the door opens and this woman steps out, staring directly at him. He's a little taken aback because he wasn't expecting it, and it seems like the look on her face is almost like she heard him thinking about her or something. "Ah, Valana," the older man says. "Please, come sit by the fire. Are you feeling better?" She smiles at the old man, walks forward, gives him a kiss on one cheek, kiss on the other cheek. "Yes, Papa, I'm feeling much better. You know how these things are." And he knows how those things are, but Reev doesn't. So we're going to do a detect check here to see what kind of body language. Barely a success. It does seem like Skarenji knows what his daughter's talking about, but he's really he didn't pick anything up beyond that. There's a grunt and kind of a heavy moan, and he looks over and kind of in shock, he reaches for his dagger and sees that Ngaio has sat up. Her eyes are clearer, and her stomach grumbles. And she gets up, runs off, and begins throwing up quite violently. Sorshi gets up, goes over, pats her back. Ngaio has really short hair, so she doesn't have to hold her hair back, but she does like, she is there. Yep, get it all out. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, you were all saying over there that, you've seen people coming from different realms. Do you know how to get to those realms? She says. Well, the older woman says, it's different for each of those who travels the mists, but for us, we simply travel in our wagon. Unfortunately, the mists don't always allow that for others. Reev listens to this, but he doesn't have any idea what's going on. So,
do you think you could take us with you?
That's unlikely, the older woman says. Skarenji nods and sits down. He opens what looks like a large wine flask, pouring some dark liquid into some various wooden cups, and starts passing them around. The mists, he says, are treacherous that way. If we try to take you with us, it's unlikely you'll end up where we're going, and it could be worse for you. Carloni laughs. It's just like this kind of single scoffing laugh. But Reev notices the woman is staring at him. And then Skarenji notices. He sighs. It seems that my daughter has a future she would like to tell you about.
I don't know what that means.
It is all right. It is her gift, you can say. She sees possible futures.
Okay.
Carloni kneels down next to the woman, the younger woman. I apologize, I forgot her name. Alana? What's her name? Do. Oh no, I forgot her name. Yes, Valana. Yay. He kneels next to Valana. And at this point, it becomes pretty obvious to Reev that they're related somehow. At first, he thought maybe these were the children's parents. And that might be true of one of them, but it is the likeness between this younger man and this younger woman are just too strong. And Carloni says, Lana, you shouldn't. You just did, and it drained you already. You need to rest. You don't know them. You don't owe them anything. She reaches up without looking at him, puts her hand on his hand, pats it, smiles slightly. And then her eyes roll up in her head, and her hand drops limply to her lap. Carloni just shakes his head and steps away. The Lost One has called you, she gasps. Each of the people here, her family, they make a gesture, almost like a ward that Reev has seen before, something that wards off evil or corruption. The dead will walk with the coming storm, and you must find a way to put them to rest. If you cannot, you and you and all of Marais de Terrasson will drown in blood. Scrungy stands quickly. He spills his drink, looks around. No charge for your fortune. We're gonna call it a night. The woman, her eyes still roll back in her head, is staring directly at Reev. He's like, what the fuck is going on? But suddenly she goes limp. Her eyes somewhat blearily begin to refocus. She glances around, sees her brother. She smiles thinly at him. Oh, Carlone, when did you get here? Oh, yes, if you could help me back to the wagon, that would be great. He lifts her, not in the way that he lifted Ngaio, but helps her to her feet and then guides her back to the wagon.
Does anyone want to explain what just happened? Where are you all going? Okay?
The older woman, Rihanna, is overfeeding the horses. She looks nervous. She glances over at the trio of newcomers. She makes that sign again with her hands. Maybe in a way that she thought wasn't going to be noticed, but actually, let's see. Just to be sure. Oh, no. No. Reev doesn't see it at all with that awesome natural one. He's too busy focused on this woman that's being led back towards the covered wagon. She steps a little awkwardly, swaying on her feet onto the step and then up into the wagon. Her brother glares back over his shoulders, steps in, closes the door. Feel free to use the fire for the evening. There's actually here, you can just take this stew with you. You don't seem to have a lot of food. Here, he reaches over, pulls some more breads, a roll of cheese, and a big hunk of dried cured meat out. Sets it down on a big blanket, ties the blanket up around it. You all have a good night. He gets up and goes over and he's at the front of the wagon, which is facing away, and it's kind of where the kids are bedded down. And they all go about their business, almost like the trio of newcomers aren't even there. Reev is like, okay. He goes in, he sits next to Sorsha. And Ngaio, who has stopped vomiting and is actually kind of staring off at these people confusedly. Does anyone want to tell me what happened? Where are we? Did we make it out of the swamp? No, we're not out of the swamp, but there was apparently some kind of fortune telling that happened. And I don't think they liked what the woman had to say.
Yeah, you can say that again. I feel like they said we're welcome here, but I'm getting a very distinct cold shoulder feeling. I could be wrong. What do you think?
And Sorsha says, no, I think you're right. I'm definitely picking up on that too. Why don't we take them off on the offer for fire, because I could sure use a night warming my bones. And we'll definitely take that food that they left. And she gestures at the blanket that's sitting nearby and the large bowl that is covered. But I think we should let them be.
Are you sure? Because they seem to know how to get out of here, and they didn't really want to tell us.
That is true. But I don't think that trying to force an answer from two old people and a fellow with his kids and apparently his sister?
Oh, those are his kids? How can you tell? They all look the same.
You can just tell. Well, I can just tell. Apparently you're not around human children all that much, are you?
No, no, I'm pretty sure I'm allergic, actually. I tend to break out in various rashes and sniffles when I'm around kids. I'm surprised it didn't happen this time around, but they weren't close enough to me. I wasn't like touched by them, so there's that.
You're a little odd.
I've heard that from time to time.
If you're going to, why don't you take a break? I'm going to, or maybe get some sleep. I'm going to sit up with Ngaio here and help her make sure that everything has come up. She doesn't end up falling asleep and choking on her own vomit or something.
Well, that's all of this was really great nightmare fuel, and I think I am going to take you up on that, but let me know if you need anything.
And Reev will go over and he looks around and there are some blankets that have been left from them to lay on. And so he just sets his pack on one, puts his bow down within reach, and spends probably the better part of an hour trying to fall asleep. Sleep is difficult in coming, but sooner or later it does end up taking him and he begins to dream. Odds are going to be a good dream, tails are going to be a bad dream. I said tails. Odds are tails, because that's how dice work. So odds were a bad dream, so evens are a good dream. He is dreaming, he's actually dreaming about being at home with his family and eating some various things that his mother used to make when he was a child. And he's not a child, he's older in the dream, and he's carrying his bow that he has now, which he didn't get for years until after he had left. Sure, dumplings, I love it. His mom used to make these amazing dumplings with chicken, and his various siblings are gathered around, some of which are dead, died in various ways throughout the years, some of which are still alive. But it's really nice that they're here for this meal. He feels safe. And so it's really disconcerting and shocking when he opens his eyes suddenly and the fire is pretty much gone out. It's just coals and embers. And he can see very dimly the reflection of the embers in someone's eyes. Valana, the woman who went back into the wagon, sits across from him at the fire, her eyes wide and staring at him. He doesn't see her mouth move, but he hears her voice say, "Beware the madman, beware his blood." He blinks, and it's morning. The wagon is gone. Sorsha is snoring heavily next to him just above his head, laying also wrapped around the fire, across the fire from him. Ngaio is completely sacked out. She looks much healthier. The sweat is gone. The color has returned to her skin, and she seems to be peacefully sleeping. He sits up quickly, looks around, sees no sign of those kids, those people, the horses, sees no sign of the wagon. He gets up, begins scouring the ground, looking for where they went. So he's going to do a detect check. He needs a 6 or better. Got a 9. Dice are not great today, but better than failures. He does find where the wagon sat. He sees where the children slept on the ground, the blankets that they had been using, leaving little fibers every so often and kind of mushing down the moss and grasses that were growing there. He sees where the horses were. Actually, their road apples are still left behind. There's hoof prints. But it doesn't look like they were hitched up. He doesn't see them, like, other than the tracks leading from the wagon to where they were tied up. There's no tracks going back. He doesn't see further wagon tracks going off in one way or another. And now that he's looking, he doesn't see where they came in to begin with. There should be some signs of them arriving, and there's nothing. He looks off into the gray, thin light of the swamp and sees nothing but water surrounding this islet around them. There was nowhere for them to come in from or go off to.
I haven't had enough of this bullshit.
He goes over, picks up his bow, strings it, and reaches down. He's going to wake Ngaio first, even though she was not feeling well. He gently shakes her shoulder, shouldering his bag as he does so.
Hey, are you ready to go?
And as they wake and begin gathering up the goods they were left, which are there is a blanket that has food wrapped inside of it. There is a wood bowl that is covered with a leather covering that's tied off. The blankets they slept on are still there. The rope that holds the skiff to a tree still there. And they gather up the stuff and get back on the skiff, untying the rope and coiling it on the deck of the skiff. And with a goblin curse and shudder, Reev stares back at the islet where he met these people last night that have disappeared. And he makes that gesture, that warding gesture that he saw them make back in that direction, and begins pushing them through the swamp. And with that, I'm going to address a question that's in chat. Could you use Shadow Dark to play this game? Absolutely. It is not very far removed from the way Vagabond works, and it sure is not that far removed from how the edition of D&D that this module was written in, which was 2nd edition. It's a little closer to so this is 2nd edition, and so there's in the Discord, Stacy, we've talked about ascending and descending AC. So this uses the descending AC, and so there's Stacko. So to hit armor class 0, you have to roll a certain number, stuff like that. And so it is a little different than Shadow Dark is, and different than Vagabond, but the upside is those systems. For example, Vagabond, so far, none of the bad guys, monsters, enemies and such that I have encountered in here none of them are not already in Vagabond as well. and in a pretty similar power level. So I haven't looked at Shadow Dark, but I'm pretty sure same thing is going to be the case. So with that, the day passes fairly uneventfully. There are flies, which there weren't for the last few days, and as they come to notice that, they also notice there are birds in the trees chasing after the flies and other insects. There are mosquitoes. There's various life that have been missing for the last few days. They notice fish and small frogs. No crocodiles, no giant toads like the ones that took Payne's life, but the tension that carried through the last few days seems to be broken now that this life has returned to the swamp. Maybe things aren't quite so weird, but they aren't relaxed about things either. Yes, it is comforting that there are these normalities that have returned, but they're still in a strange place, and it was in situations like this that those creatures attacked them, not like the last few days where they were just traveling in silence. And so it is with caution that they progress forward. And let's see who notices this. I'm going to give that to Reev because he got an 18 on his roll. He needed a 6. As Reev is continuing to steer, he thinks several hours have passed. It's difficult to tell, although there's a quality to the light that has changed. So much so that the thin gray light has... it kind of became a little more normal, a little more warm, maybe. And then as the day progressed, he could see clouds rolling across the sky as opposed to the flat gray. And he notices that in the distance, every so often above the trees, he can see in the direction they're facing away from, maybe a glimmer of sunlight or something. And in the direction that they're going, the sky is beginning to darken, and he notices clouds rolling in, thick storm clouds. In fact, he's pretty sure he can smell rain. And it's as he's kind of breathing in that fresh smell. There's a word for that, and I know what the word is. I just can't think of what it is right now. The smell of rain. If anyone in chat knows what it is, throw it in there, because I don't remember right now. And you can almost smell the ozone. Petrichor, thank you, Ty. I appreciate that. That petrichor smell of rain that's fallen, or maybe is about to fall. There's like a weird smell of ozone from lightning that seems to be sticking to the skies. He hasn't heard thunder. He hasn't seen any flashes of light, but those scents are there. And it's as he looks down, he almost drops the pole because there's a house. It's like on very tall stilts over there in the swamp. So much so that he almost thought it was a tree, but as they've gotten closer, it is blatantly a house. And as the sky darkens, he can see that light pours out from inside, warm, inviting light. Do you see that? And he kind of like rubs his eyes. And Ngaio, who is feeling much better, stands up and looks, and a moment later, Sorsha, who was trying to get a nap, also stands up and kind of blearily looks that way. That's a house. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was a house, because it looks like a house, and but it's on stilts. It's a very tall house, or very short house on very tall legs. I know what stilts are. Saoirse looks back at him. Maybe we should see if anyone's home? But we should be cautious, Ngaio says. And she picks up her bow, restrings it, pulls out an arrow. Doesn't knock it, but has it at the ready. Saoirse hefts her shield, like clumps it down next to her, and is kind of like leaning on it. Reev puts his hand on his dagger, but is really like, trying to steer the skiff, and so ends up having to let it go and is just pushing forward. Let's see what he notices as they get closer. With a 4, he notices there's a house. It's on stilts. There's warm light coming out of it. And that's about it. As they get almost underneath it, the skiff bumps up against one of the legs, and Saoirse throws the rope around it, catches it, ties it off. Hello up there. Does anyone want to come out and greet us, or throw down a ladder or something? And there's no response.
Maybe they're out getting dinner.
It could be, but how would they get back in?
That's a good point. Oh, maybe they're magic users. Maybe they can fly up and down. Maybe they have wings. There are people that have wings. There are monsters that have wings too. We should probably be careful.
That is a good plan, Ngaio says. If anyone's up there, would you mind? We're just trying to find our way out, and you don't even have to come down. You don't have to let us up. We're just trying to find out how to get out of the swamp. In the distance, there's a swooshing in the water. Reev looks back to make sure there aren't creatures sneaking up on them. And now that the skiff is tied off, he lays the pole down, and he does pull out an arrow, knocks it in his bow, and begins watching off in the distance, glancing up at the house every so often.
If anyone's up there, now would be better than later, because it's almost dark and we don't have torches. We don't have lanterns. Seems like you do. I can actually see a lantern up there. Could you maybe help us out?
I don't know if anyone's up there. I don't hear anything. Well, I don't know what to tell you, because if they're not up there, then they've got to be out in the swamp, and they'll be back, so we could wait.
I don't like this.
Reev kneels down, keeping his eyes as close to everywhere as possible. "10 minutes go by, then half an hour, then an hour. This time is only broken up every so often by essentially Reev saying,
Can we go now?
No, I don't think so. Not quite yet. I want to get out of this swamp, and I think this is our best bet."
Well, I just think I would rather not be stuck out here in the dark again without any way to see for Ngaio to be able to see, and maybe we could do that.
You're not wrong. Let's give it another half an hour.
Okay.
Reev stares off in the ever thickening gloom, and then it's dark, and the various noises of the swamp around him just lend to his nervousness. And so it's with a bit of shock and a little bit of a scream that he picks up the pole, ready to push off, not even thinking about the fact that the skiff is tied up, and begins pushing it away when a ladder unrolls, the ropes falling down, clattering. There's wood beams in between, like rungs that are for footholds, and it comes to a rest right off the side of the skiff. Stacy asks, how much of the adventure is my own creation? None of it's really my own creation, just their character backgrounds and where they're from. I am being a little fluid with explaining it, but it is largely the Night of the Walking Dead Ravenloft module. Reev does let out a little cry of alarm, to which Sorsh is like, oh, I can see that you're real good at sneaking up on people.
You know, look, if they didn't know we were out here, why would they have dropped down the ladder? And
he like stops and looks out into the darkness, his hand ready to pull the arrow back in his bow and fire it on anyone attacking. He doesn't say anything though. No one walks up, no one comes up on a boat, no one flies in.
What if they're invisible? What if they can see? What if they can move outside of our range of vision? I've heard about stuff like that.
Well, that would be problematic. But I think we should just go up the ladder.
Are you sure?
It is why we've been sitting around waiting.
Okay, but I don't want either of you to be harmed in the process, so I'll go first, because if something is up there, I will just jump back out, and one of you has a better chance of catching me in the fall than I could catch either of you.
To which Sorsha kind of eyes him up and down, and she nods. He's not wrong about that. Okay. Ngaio barely stifles a laugh. Stacy says, I'm about to purchase the module, and I deviated quite a bit from Wild Beyond the Witchlight. That is fair, because the game that used Wild Beyond the Witchlight was using it to go into a different direction. Totally fair. Yeah. Reev puts the string of his bow around his chest so it's still knocked, or it's still strung, and begins to climb the ladder. It is a little awkward. It's a rope ladder, and so there's a bit of sway and everything. And seeing this, Sorsha grabs it, puts her foot in the bottom rung, and like pulls down, kind of helping it to stay a little more stable. Reev gets to the top. He reaches down, touches his short sword, not dagger, and just kind of keeps his hand near it as he uses the other arm to kind of boost himself up. Looking around inside, he notices there are several lanterns lit. There's a table that has dishes stacked on it. There's a pantry that seems to have various boxes stacked inside of it. There's a cupboard and a countertop. The countertop has some breads and fruits in various stages of freshness. He notices some of them are maybe a little moldy, whereas others are very fresh. But what's maybe even stranger is the fellow that's just kind of sitting. There are several lanterns lit around him. And all in all, it's easy to count at least 24 of these lanterns throughout the room. The young man, his hair long and blonde, but kind of bedraggled and dirty. He's thin and pale, and his kind of brilliant blue eyes are sunken in his face. Dark circles under the bags, just inflamed. His lips are parched and seem to be constantly moving, even though Reev can't hear anything coming out. Noticeable in the lantern light, a small leather-bound book rests in his lap. A worn cover, obviously worn down by the fidgeting that this young man is his hands are constantly moving over it.
Sir, are you okay?
For a moment, he doesn't think this man's going to respond. But then he notices... I'm not even going to have him roll for it. He does notice just a faint flicker of the eyes that go from staring off, unfocused, to at least being unfocused at him. Maybe sharpening slightly before going and doing that 1,000-yard stare off into nothing again, his lips continuously moving. Reev leans back, looks down.
There's a guy up here. Wow. I don't even know what to say. Just get up here.
To which he hears the ladder begin to kind of clatter against the wood as it scrapes. He can tell just by he doesn't really know how much each of them weighs, but he's pretty sure Sorsha is coming up first because she has all of the armor and there's a strain on the ladder. And sure enough, in a moment, her blood-stained but now, dried, kind of dented up armor appears, her brilliant red hair poking up first, and then her face, and then the armor, and she gets up with a grunt. Oh, I couldn't carry my shield up that. That wasn't going to work out. Wow. I don't want to be the one who has to buy oil for this place.
Right?
They just kind of stare for a moment at all of the lanterns of various makes. Some are small, some are glass, some are metal. Some are like the hurricane lamps, some are more of the beam kind, and all of them just burn brightly, as though to keep the darkness at bay. And what's this fellow's name?
He did not seem to want to answer me or anything.
Reev does nudge Sorsha and then gestures at the fellow's lap. And she looks down at the book and just kind of nods. And a few moments later... Ugh. Whew. Oh, wow, it is warm in here. Oh, hello. I apologize for the intrusion. Ngaio stops and stares at the man. No sign of reaction from him.
Okay, well, so we're just trying to get out of the swamp. Can you tell us how to get out of here? Are you trying to say something?
He's gonna creep closer. And I'm gonna have him do a detect check for this. 4. Amazing. So as he gets closer, the young man does not seem to change his behavior. He continues to scratch and fidget with the book. Reev tries to catch like what the book's title is or any kind of markings on it, and other than the wear and tear that's been wrought upon it, he can't see anything. He doesn't hear anything that this man's saying, and it doesn't appear that the man is even cognizant of him being there at this point. I'm going to roll a die. If we get an odd, Sorsha is going to blow out a lamp. If we get an even, she does not. Even, she does not. She begins kind of wandering around, and she's looking at everything, and she's just like, it is mighty hot up here. I don't know if we can stay up here, but if this fellow is not going to help, maybe we can find some kind of map or directions. There's fresh food here, and she gestures at the food that's on the counter, that's on the table. Some of it appears to have been eaten, but those show signs of being days old. Nothing fresh has been consumed that they can see.
What's in the boxes?
He gestures at the pantry. I will go over and lift a lid. Oh, lots of food. Breads, cheeses, wine. But looking at this guy's state, I don't think he's the one eating it, because he's awfully gaunt. Not for lack of him being able to, though.
I don't know. This is all very weird, and I'm feeling a little uncomfortable being here.
Yeah, me too. Let's just go.
You couldn't have signed me up faster. Thanks.
And he starts heading for the door. Behind him, slowly drawn out, almost like he's gagging on the words, trying to get them out, the young man says,
"The ond descend shall evil of night the land. At near is signs of hexad this win hand."
And then he coughs and goes back to just mouthing words instead of saying them. But Reev turns slowly around, his eyes wide, his skin's crawling a little. That was creepy. And
yeah, we don't need to be here anymore.
I think you're right. Let's get the fuck out of here. And Sorsha just comes over and like kind of pushes Reev towards the door even faster. Ngaio does linger a moment. Are you sure? He seems maybe like he's in need. I don't feel right leaving him. Okay, look, you can stay here with him. That's fine. But we're taking the skiff and we're going to go. And if you want to go with us, that would be my preference. You're probably right. And Reev is already like halfway down the ladder at this point. He hears the strain on the rope as Sorsha steps out onto it, and he hurries down just a little faster just in case. He doesn't know how old this ladder is. He gets to the bottom and watches as she finishes descending, and then Ngaio standing in the door watching inside for a moment, and then she kind of sighs and begins climbing down. They prepare to disembark. Reev is like,
I think we've been here long enough, and I know it's dark. Oh, maybe we should have, like, got one of those lanterns? Screw it, I'm not going back up there.
Sorsha laughs a little bit, but Ngaio's like, well, I could go up.
No, it's okay.
And they untie the skiff, and just as they're getting ready to disembark, the skiff jolts a little, like there's something else has stepped on it, and they all turn and look back, and the young man is standing on the deck of the skiff. He doesn't seem to see them. He's just standing there clutching this book. His mouth continues to silently speak words they don't understand, that at least weren't in a cohesive sentence. And stares out beyond them.
Okay, you go, you go back up the ladder. Go on now. You go up the ladder.
Maybe he doesn't want to go up the ladder?
I'm pretty sure this is not his boat. I'm pretty sure this is our boat, and therefore I am voting for let's not have him on it. I don't think he gets a vote.
All right, if we're going to do it that way, let's vote. I vote that we should let him go with us, because I think he needs our help, and he's just having a hard time explaining it.
I obviously vote for no, because he's kind of creeping me out, and I kind of want him to go back up there and be in his nice little warm cabin on stilts in the middle of this horrible swamp, and obviously someone's taking care of him because they brought food, right?
Well, we don't know that someone else brought him the food. He could have brought it himself, and now maybe something happened, and that's why he's in this state. And through all this, Sorsha's been listening to them go back and forth. Oh, I don't really want to be responsible for his death if he were to stay here. And if he goes with us, at least we can protect him from whatever.
Can we? Can we protect him from whatever? How has that worked out for us so far?
To which they both glare at Reev, while the man just continues to stare off into the distance, quietly mouthing nonsense, maybe.
Okay, that was probably a little far. I apologize. But the point is valid.
I understand that you're worried that this fellow is maybe going to cause us problems, but I think we can take him. And I'm not even going to say that quietly. I think he needs to know that we can take him, should that be necessary. I don't think he's any threat to us. Meanwhile, all of the creatures in the swamp are likely a threat to him, so why don't we help him out, and maybe he is going to be able to help us find our way out of the swamp. Maybe he'll snap out of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold my breath and hope that happens real soon.
Ngaio just shakes her head. Whatever, he's coming with us. It's 2 against 1. You said we'd vote. This is our skiff, right? Well, we win. And she sits down. Why don't you come sit down next to me? She gestures for the man to sit. he just continues to stand there staring off into space. Sorsha looks between the three of them, between the man, Ngaio, and Reev. She shrugs. Might as well be at it. Do you want me to push off, or do you want to do it?
I'll do it.
He goes over and begins pushing the skiff beyond where the house is. The strange man stands there for the better part of an hour. They converse. They try to talk with him. He never changes his behavior, just staring off in the same direction. And then, as they're debating on who should take watches for the night, if they should continue pushing on, he moves. He sits down. He faces off to the left, and his eyes are still vacant, his lips still moving constantly. And in one hand he cradles the book, his fingers rubbing incessantly on it, but the other hand reaches up and, with long, unkempt fingernails, he points off in the direction he's facing. It's only for a moment, and if they hadn't really been paying attention, they would have missed it. And then he drops his hand back to the cover of the book and begins fiddling with it again. Well, that could be a sign, Ngaio says.
Yeah, it could be a sign that he is leading us to our doom, our demise, our death.
Okay, alliteration aside, I think that maybe he's showing us the way out. It is what we asked him for. Maybe he's trying to communicate with us.
Yeah, maybe. But maybe not.
You really kind of see the negative in all things, don't you?
Yes. Yes, I do. It has gotten me this far in life. I have outlived most of my siblings, and there is a reason for that.
Okay. Sorsha, what do you think? I don't think that there's anything we're going to lose by following his gesture or going off in this direction. What do you think? I think you're pretty on the dot there. I think that is absolutely the case. And she stares meaningfully at Reev.
Fine.
And he pushes to redirect the skiff in the direction of the way that the man pointed. And as the skiff shifts, he also shifts, kind of scoots himself a little, mostly with his legs, so it's almost like they can't see him turning on purpose, but he turns to face in the direction that he was pointing. And Reev is like,
I'm telling you, this is not right. This is weird. Didn't that lady say to beware the madman? Didn't she say that?
I'll be honest, if you're talking about anyone at the camp, I have only vague recollections of them. I was rather delirious through most of it. No, if you're talking about the woman and the nonsense that she spouted at us that scared her family off, no, I don't remember anything about a madman.
No. I mean, like when she was around, when she came to the camp afterwards and everyone was sleeping.
No, I don't remember that.
Maybe you were asleep. She showed up after everyone was asleep, and she like said that, and then apparently went back to the wagon or something, and then they were gone in the morning. She said to beware of the madman and his blood. So this obviously is a man that is mad, and maybe we should not let him bleed on us. That's for sure. But I don't really know what else you want me to say. This is a bad idea.
Okay, I understand. You were not on board with this, but we're all in this together. Unless you want to go elsewhere, we're happy to let you off at the next point that you feel okay to do so, and we'll take the skiff and this nice gentleman who's helping us get out of this swamp, hopefully, and you can go off on your own.
Why can't I have the skiff and you all go off on your own?
Well, I would say that's because there are two of us at least that have weapons and are bigger than you, and a third that does not really seem all that mobile on his own. So we could make much greater use of the skiff than you probably could. You can probably make your way just fine, can't you? You didn't have a skiff to begin with when you were going through your little swamp, or did you?
No, not the point.
No, I'm pretty sure that's my point.
Okay. Okay. Hear me out. Let's all stay together. And the first sign that this guy is not what he appears to be. Let me rephrase this, because he appears to be maybe a crazy person that might want to kill us and eat us. I'm not 100% sure on that. The first time he shows any kind of offensive behavior, like he's going to attack or bite or something, one of us, going to go ahead and just leave his body in the swamp.
Ngaio shakes her head, but Sorsha's like, that is fair. Yeah, absolutely.
Whoa, okay.
And he looks at the back of the person's head, and he's like,
I got my eye on you. Both of them.
The man doesn't turn, doesn't seem to give any sign that he hears anything that's being said about him. Just continues to stare off. And as the skiff pushes through the water, the storm rolling in above them, the only sounds that they really hear are the various cries of nocturnal wildlife in the swamp and the incessant scratching on the leather tome that the man holds in his lap. And with that, we're going to wrap it up for this week. That was a lot of me just talking. Not much in the way of rolling tonight or today. I hope you had fun as we build towards the next chapter of this story. Dungeon Mr. Ty, I am looking forward to seeing Jose's Dale Lands that are coming out next month. I'm assuming that's based on the book that he's helping to write. So definitely looking forward to that. Make sure you share that with us so that we can share that with our various followers, and would love to spread the word. Glad you could make it, Stacey. I'm glad that you had fun. Thank you, Ty, for tuning in. Thanks, Raven, for tuning in. Everyone who's been lurking, thank you for lurking. I appreciate it. We're going to raid over to Guild Superior in a moment, but before we do, I just want to bring up again, we're playing some solo sagas, which are this here. Yeah, my voice is definitely starting to rasp. Solo Sagas is the hopefully weekly stream where I'm going to be playing a solo or soloable game. In this case, we're playing Vagabond, which is not designed to be soloed, but it does have some small solo rules, largely saying, hey, play the game as it is designed because it's very easy to do so solo, as we have found out in the first 3 episodes of doing this. Specifically, we're playing a Ravenloft module from 2nd edition D&D to see how it plays with this system, and so far it's been spot on. I think the only problem that we've run into is the dice being extraordinarily mean when they really need to be supportive. But that's really just dice in general, right? They'll fail you when you need them the most. So, both links are in the chat right now, and if you're watching on YouTube later, they are in the show notes below. Make sure you check them out. What else? Make sure you head over to YouTube. If you haven't already, give us a follow over there. It says in chat that there's over 300 videos. I'm pretty sure there's over 400 now. I need to update that. So there's a whole bunch of videos over there for you to watch, TTRPGs, chats, all of the fun. And if you want to follow me on the socials, you can do so at WHPubs pretty much everywhere where I am on, which are all the places that aren't Twitter. So head over and follow me on those: Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all the fun stuff. 380 videos, Raven says, almost 400, but we are over 418 followers now that Mr. Ty has followed. 419. Perfect. Thanks so much for watching today. Definitely appreciate it. When we get over to Guild Superior, make sure you say hi. Get that raid going here as we head out. And then hang out. If they haven't started streaming yet, they will momentarily for the finale of House of Eidolon's Siren's Demise. It's going to be a fun time, and make sure that you go follow the Kickstarter for that game, which they'll talk about over there, because one, it's going to be an amazing cyberpunk system for playing your TTRPGs with, and two, pay the $1 that is like a pre-backing thing. You get a once only, you will never see it printed again unless you back it for $1 prior to the game. Necrotic kind of necromancer cyber person, cyber class. Necrotech is the term, which was inspired by a guy that I got to play during the prelude to this game. So much fun. So much fun. So thanks so much, everybody, for following. I appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Bye.